Those against, say no.
And I hope the say no, ne hoodie, say no, Nina, say, Sadia Bea, Bema no, no, Bema da near the adi. A hun send me braba, enya some catwa. Na a year over some George in the team and no more call parliament say, be away dear Jack or sponsor any idea, dear Masadi near Trim. Nina is almost all Montiasie, say, Usu be do twa, Sebi. Na udi wo de mo a chinchina ye ma kwan ne fa be na ntikiditi a ne bantama ene o mondwene o montiase sa ubitima show dem aye de oye stay your ma parcel wo Ukraine ubitima show dem na oye ne o ma bi apeso oye no problem ba sa so peso na ma na wo cheche auto na say etimi mamo e kwan na say mo ye party ye bewe to onsa no ma no se eno de o mani enje hu to mo hye mmereti asa de no na we ne kopi mo parliament o madi san sam ne hu komache yi pa afina parliament atena say amoma those who against say yes, who against say no, and na ye na ne kusi ya ne say omaji atum na aka say yem president Edna Sabesha Sakrata na but omaji atum o parliament wi anyway yenko parliament ne yenko hwede e course ebra na say yes ni say no no e course no
say aye. Those against, say no. Honorable members, the ayes have it. The Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill 2021 is read the third time and passed.
An act to provide for human sexual rights and family values and related matters.
According to Aben Babin, we say no, say yes no. Ubien wa utimi epeja ne saka se mepene so anase mempene so next wodi agro anhwa wanim ababaye graphic munani ne namu no ubia ka ho asem ne nipa ye fene Sam George a odi adie mu tintimman waye o videos bi wo ho a wadi nkomo afa sa adie hu ade crop potenti a ofusu se sa adie no so mo gisa mbra ne tumu no yenkotie ne bota ye pa o started sa ne campaign we no na odi di nkomo.
And for those who say why is Sam George interested in this, yeah. I am absolutely not interested in what you do in the privacy of your bedroom. It's not my business.
So then why this? Why there?
It is because these same people have taken what is their private possession and are bringing it into my children's classroom. Not Legon, Little Angels. I'm
what happened there?
The school.
Not Legon.
Yes, Little Angels.
What happened in that school?
They take somebody who calls herself an influencer and a so-called social media celebrity, takes her to a school to sit with children aged 8 to 11 and tells them that it is okay for them as boys to love boys and girls to love girls.
They did that here in Ghana.
In Ghana, not Legon, Little Angels.
Which celebrity is that?
Call herself Deborah Vanessa, whatever.
Deborah Vanessa.
Medical's ex, no?
Yeah, I mean, that's One Love sister.
Yes.
Let's say that, yes.
Yes, One Love sister.
Yeah.
From United. She goes and what she's doing is grooming.
She told this.
Yes, the video was there and they posted it on Instagram. Now the school, after the backlash, has taken the video down. Did the school seek the permission of the parents for that kind of education to be given to their children? These are some of the things that are making me and my blood boil. How can I pay fees for my child to go to school? Now these people think that their whole life must be defined by what should be a private moment of theirs. When you bring your privacy into public policy, I have an opinion to share. And for those who say why is Sam George interested in this, yeah. I am absolutely not interested in what you do in the privacy of your bedroom. It's not my business.
So then why this? Why there?
It is because these same people have taken what is their private possession and are bringing it into my children's classroom. Not Legon, Little Angels. I'm
what happened there?
The school.
Not Legon.
Yes, Little Angels.
What happened in that school?
They take somebody who calls herself an influencer and a so-called social media celebrity, takes her to a school to sit with children aged 8 to 11 and tells them that it is okay for them as boys to love boys and girls to love girls.
They did that here in Ghana.
In Ghana, not Legon, Little Angels.
Which celebrity is that?
Call herself Deborah Vanessa, whatever.
Deborah Vanessa.
Medical's ex, no?
Yeah, I mean, that's One Love sister.
Yes.
Let's say that, yes.
Yes, One Love sister.
Yeah.
From United. She goes, and what she's doing is grooming.
She told the
Yes, the video was there and they posted it on Instagram. Now the school, after the backlash, has taken the video down. Did the school seek the permission of the parents for that kind of education to be given to their children? These are some of the things that are making me and my blood boil. How can I pay fees for my child to go to school? Now these people think that their whole life must be defined by what should be a private moment of theirs. When you bring your privacy into public policy, I have an opinion to share.
Utie ne buta ya wose won hye ndem no na yeri bibia no problem. But akwese we mu di na akwese ye mo hu tumi na omo emfambra society mu na so de benante mu no so de nam schools mu no wose no e na ohu ni se enya de e beboa Ghana ye nkanko nti obehye mmara ana so be ne nkofo mebiri na betim krata so e de atia saa de ya epese e bohu dawuru e wo Ghana yi na enye no nkwan video wa you parliament wa ko ho ache yi pa adichi bia wo ko wo bisa questions ni ade yenko tie any videos previous videos bi anse ma basem bi ampesam de tudwa so
because Mr. Speaker, like it is attributed to Robert Mugabe, if you put two men in a room and give them 12 months to produce as an offspring, they cannot produce an offspring. And so, Mr. Speaker, we will continue to stand here. But let me use this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to celebrate Mr. Speaker, who has been a stalwart and a bastion for this bill. But for Mr. Speaker, this bill would most likely have been killed. Mr. Speaker has stood his ground and ensured that this bill has come this far. And I want to use this opportunity with the support of my colleague members of parliament, since we all support this bill, to serve notice to the Western powers that we have taken judicial notice of what they have done to the Speaker of Uganda. After Uganda passed the bill, the sanctions on the Speaker of Uganda's parliament and on the sponsors of those bills, we will serve notice as well that if they replicate same with our Speaker and members of parliament, we will also take action against their business interest in our country, because they serve in this country and make money from here and take back home. They cannot hold us to ransom. And like has been asked on this floor, Mr. Speaker, why is it that the American Secretary of State has not sanctioned the Secretary of Defense? Because June was declared Pride Month and they had transgender parades. The US Secretary of Defense blocked and stopped a transgender parade on a US Air Force base because he said the US Pentagon, which is their defense headquarters, would not support such activity. Governor DeSantis has passed legislation against open transgender parades in Florida. Why have they not taken on their own citizens? In fact, in 2022 alone, there were 433 actions in State House of Legislatures across the United States banning and clamping down on homosexuality. The Supreme Court of the United States, SCOTUS, just last week, passed a landmark judgment enforcing the rights of American citizens to refuse to offer services to people on the basis of their faith and because they were LGBTQ. Mr. Speaker, it shows you that even America has realized the error of their judgment and are walking back their steps. Italy in June designated June also as Family Protection Month to counter the Pride Month. Maybe that's something Ghana should begin to consider, that we make June a family values month to celebrate the Ghanaian family value. But Mr. Speaker, in wrapping up, Mr. Speaker, I just want to state that the dangers of homosexuality are grave. Persons who are homosexuals or transgenders, per statistics from the CDC, have at least 6 times higher rates of obesity, substance abuse, and suicidal thoughts than heterosexual people. This has a consequence for our health bill as a country and public health, and we cannot turn a blind eye to this. I want to thank every member of this House who has supported this journey so far, especially the committee as well, in bringing us this far. Mr. Speaker, this bill will be passed to the glory of God. Mr. Speaker, this bill that they say the God we serve is a God of love. Yes, he's a God of love, but he's a God of justice. He gives forgiveness. He gives mercy to those who repent of their sins. He doesn't give mercy to those who stay in their sins. We are willing and ready to offer support to anyone who wants support. Mr. Speaker, the Old Testament and the New Testament are replete with Bible scripture. I cannot end without quoting the Bible. Mr. Speaker, the Bible is clear. In Leviticus 18:22, it says, do not practice homosexuality. Having sex with another man as with a woman, it is a detestable sin. And for those who say that we are living under the dispensation of grace, the Bible says in 1 Corinthians 6:9-10, don't you realize that those who do wrong will not inherit the kingdom of God? Don't fool yourself. Those who indulge in sexual sin, or who worship idols, or commit adultery, or are male prostitutes, or practice homosexuality, or are thieves or greedy people or drunkards, or abusive or cheap people, none of this will inherit the kingdom of God. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
In some way, and Wakaye, a broad parliament na a fasa a yet to mudi hua, or church and admin edifa hua, and as a nyasam kitwa. It will ras some and any timidie, or my say, Sa Bonnie, the omum for us, man, see Ghana ho. But your passing brani no, parliament and him one would incomo as the only media by year juma, media in and form hunjim. When you say a your more sponsor bill on Kwa. And a barber yes, I say any idea, median in and form but the wuru, a monk or for sonte, and think of for one and fast I crying on person comedy or more as a bomoto at the first one.
Continue to work with you going forward in the sensitization of the public. As sponsors, we once again want to reassure the media that you are partners in this battle and in this struggle. The intent of the bill has never been to gag your chapter 12 rights. We respect your rights to editorials, but you and I all know that editorials are different from advocacy. And so your editorial rights to issues on the subject of homosexuality, issues on the subject of Ghanaian family values, would continue to be protected by us as sponsors and the Constitution of the Republic. It is for that reason we introduced the additional consideration today, just to give you that double assurance that subject to the 1992 Constitution's Chapter 12 rights of the media remain entrenched, respected, and protected. For the avoidance of any doubt, be they unintended or mischievous. And so, as our able allies, we want to once again say a very big thank you that you have carried our voice, amplified our voice, and carried the nation along. We know that per the CDD Ghana's own polls, 93% of Ghanaians support this bill and support the work that Parliament has done. And we know that we couldn't have gotten that 93% support on our own, but for the work that you, the media, have done in projecting the ills and vices of homosexuality and projecting proper Ghanaian family values. We'll continue to work with you to make sure that our children are protected, the innocence of Ghanaian children is not attacked, and that our cultural values are upheld and respected. Once again, you have our gratitude and we are grateful. We want to once again even say a very big thank you to the Honorable Oseiche Mensah Bonsu, who was very instrumental in the passage of this bill. You know that the Honorable John Ntim Fojo, who is actually not just a member of Parliament on the NPP side, but is actually a member of government by being a member, the Deputy Minister for Education, is one of our sponsors. And we cannot thank Chairman Sabonsu enough for the fantastic work he did with amendments to make sure that this bill has come out well. We believe that the majority of the NPP side, I cannot forget the immediate past Minister for Environment, Science and Technology, the Honorable Dr. Efriye, who actually helped us to improve the definition of sex by adding chromosomal structure to the definition of sex. So there has been a massive support from the majority side and overwhelming support from the minority side. The House has stood united. We may have had one or two members who have expressed reservations, but that is their democratic right. We respect it, but the overwhelming majority of both sides of the House have supported this.
In some say, and what kind of parliament, and the media, and in Kofu, Kucha, Mushiae, a bromo, a passy bill, no, Eddie, a vieno. In some way, and what Kabit Midwajin Chiraba, be ya passy, ye, who saying, who bit me to Wajin Chiraba. Now, or Casa Riano, Yatisa, America phones wedding Komokakra, Eddie Afa Bill, in whom which I say, Sano Maya dia, almost be a year or 8 days, I'm 1 morning, you may ye free Ghana ho, and San America phones which
could I take you to Africa for a few
questions?
Ghana, I know there was a statement that you issued last night on the anti-LGBTQ bill. Just to follow up on that, if my understanding is that the president, Akufo-Addo, hasn't signed it yet, are there talks with Ghana trying to stop this from becoming law? And if it comes to fruition, is there a sense of what the repercussions, if any, could be in the U.S.?
So we have made very clear what our opinion is on that law. You can look at my statement yesterday, and we have made that clear in private conversations with the government of Ghana as well. I don't think I should get any more specific than that, but if this bill becomes law, it would certainly have a chilling effect on foreign investment in tourism in Ghana. You've seen that same chilling effect bear fruit in Uganda, which passed a very similar law in the past. And I can say that should the bill pass, it would potentially have ramifications on U.S. assistance in the country.
Sure. Just a couple more in Africa.
Yeah. America phones with someone back in you, meaning say, and another down Quaco T. We so bit my sign, yeah. And no dear, or no asem, and I Ghana phone so young kind call and so who here, Ghana phone so buying bonds who here, our coach and value your caking, and so who here, Obi say, a will be far who dee, and a right no. And a month on so chess, and will be so right in its open so kumni pow, when a woman soon kumni pay. Will be so right in its own super what you two, Lura bank, lose you to shoot. Now also be our first carefully on a right no. Ubi so right ni say bi kro hia akoda aketo o lobe kuntu no odi bia ma pam ne right no ti say see right dia amanfo right pa mugu prison nti o so mo hwe ni no mo ka we yenkoma nkofo so edi enso eno no na owie no okotena FM Joy FM Joy and I say Joy News so ena okodi nkomo e wo Joy for afidi kese no so ene wono de wo trend enya asem keto because news we don't say fan home more.
It's been a tough day for you, I can imagine. Well, we've been following this from day one when it started. We've seen the back and forth, even before the third reading today, before it was passed into law. You had some issues with clauses 10 and 11. What were the issues?
All right, so good evening to our viewers. The media was our issue. The media has been our biggest ally in this battle. You've been a reliable partner on this journey for 3 years. You've given us the opportunity to clarify portions of the bill that had been intentionally and maliciously twisted by opponents of the bill. And so we consider you our greatest ally in this journey. Going forward with the public sensitization, we would still depend on the media. However, we realized that the latest spin had been focused on clause 10 and 11 of the bill, which dealt with the propagation, advocacy of support for the prohibited acts under the bill. And the latest spin had been that we were reintroducing criminal libel law, and even media houses could no longer have editorials on the subject matter. And so we decided to say that, look, for the avoidance of doubt, we'll put it inside of the bill that this is subject to the 1992 Constitution, because the sponsors of the bill will respect the Chapter 12 rights that the media has, the freedom of expression. But the media is also guided by ethics. There's a difference between editorials and advocacy. Editorials are informative and educative. Yeah. Advocacy are opinionated. And so for us, we don't have a problem, and that's why we introduced that these provisions are subject to the provisions of the Constitution. That phrase was introduced so that all the things in clause 10 and 11 are subject to the Constitution. Chapter 12 of the Constitution that deals with the freedoms of the media. Article 162, I believe, and all that gives you the freedom to express yourself. However, those freedoms are guided by your ethics. And that's why you would not advocate for something that is a criminal offense. That's why you would do, Joy, for example, before you started the show, you could have chosen to do an editorial on money laundering or anti-terrorism, but your editorial will stop short of advocating for those things. And that's the simple point we're making here.
Okay, so now it's been passed. Let's have an appreciation of what the document actually states right now, currently. There's a 3 years imprisonment bill. Pat, there's 5 years. I mean, what exactly does the document state?
I don't have the document.
I mean, just highlights of it.
I think that we have 3 categories of offenses, or 4 actually. 4 categories of offenses in the bill. Category 1 is where we criminalize the acts of homosexuality, lesbianism, gays, transgenders, and all of that. That is considered, if you're found guilty by a competent court of jurisdiction, you can be subjected to a fine of, I think, not less than 750 penalty units, and not more than 2,000 penalty units, I think. Or a jail sentence or custodial sentence of 6 months minimum, maximum 3 years, or depending on the facts before the court, a combination of both. So that's one offense. The second group of offenses are for persons who propagate, advocate, and spread the criminal offense of homosexuality, because it's been criminalized by the Act. Now, even that is broken down into 2 categories: those who do the general, and those who do targeted at children, persons under the age of 18. Now, that comes with a prison sentence of a minimum of 5 years and a maximum of 10 years. Then you also have persons who willingly fund such prohibited activities. They also have a punishment that is 5 years to 10 years. Then you have a 4th category of persons who carry out extrajudicial treatment, who, because there's a duty to report, that if you see this, you report to lawful authority. We've defined lawful authority to include traditional rulers, members of parliament, and all of those. Now, you either report to them, but if you fail to do that and you carry out extrajudicial treatment, that's where people lynch persons. You can go to jail for between 6 months and 3 years. So the bill itself takes care of extrajudicial. So those are the 4 various regimes that I readily remember are stated in the bill.
Somebody to joy so and a Jawa Sugusua, Wakwakuti, and Nidwania, or the Ashi. They say a bill no dear, or mania pass it. And watch him at the cropotia and into dear dinner tint my pa. But I knew sir, trendy aquich, France if we in a diuncomo, and Oko France for channel so, or Mudiuncomo se Ghana anti LGBTQ plus bill no my personal, which is a dear bebois, I mean, Mudiuncomo, or all the social media handles, no beer H and Adwin home. A young Francis Uncuti, the France Fonso, almost so kind.
We can now bring in France 24's International Affairs editor, Philip Turrell. Philip, what is the reason for this law?
Okay, well, this law, I think, shows a certain hardening of the stance of and a shift to the far right, basically, in Ghana, which has come after calls from religious groups, Muslim groups, Christian groups, and traditional religious groups in Ghana, following the introduction and then closure of the first LGBT centre in Ghana a couple of years ago, and then arrests of more people afterwards. This new law is making it much harder for gay people to live normal lives in Ghana. Not that they were able to do that beforehand, because already they faced 3 years in jail if they were caught having sex, for example, together. But this has made it much harder. Now, under this new law, anybody who is identified as LGBT or if you know someone who is LGBT and don't denounce that person to the authorities, you can also face a jail term of at least 3 years. Second point, 5 years in jail for funding LGBT activity. That's what's to do with associations and other organisations. And then 10 years in jail if you are part of an LGBT advocacy campaign for children. So it's all quite bad news for the gay community in Ghana. We've seen a tightening of the bill already, which now looks like it's going to go through and be signed by the president, who said that if the people of Ghana want it to be promulgated into law, then he will sign it.
Francis Fonso, I mean, Oma Canus, no, I have no med digesting. Yeah, med digesting because one say, Sir, I need the uncle for me and a dozen senior man for me, but the national parliament to climb me, say. Ibisha one because one tour and waiting. Now, Ovie no wako alata for channel biso on for News Central or Cotton News Central and Mabusana questions 1-on-1. A Busana bill on home and some lina. Urasam George etinasi din tea in Nuanamodi and so and some etuja. The okay chat winning and so was say or no dear a new problem with Sadi now more name mono say a Benny Permuni dear and then was any Pamara and no money did.
Right. I'm going to go straight with the reactions because yesterday we did talk about this bill and there are indeed conversations that are still trending concerning this particular bill. Now, you have been at the forefront to ensure that this bill is passed. But just a few hours after that bill was passed, a spokesperson for the United States Department of State, that's Matthew Miller, has come to say that the United States is deeply troubled by the passage of the legislation. And he's saying that this will indeed affect a lot of persons who live in Ghana. What's your thought on his statements, especially looking at the fact that he's saying it could also hamper freedom of speech for Ghanaians?
I'd expect Matthew Miller to respect the tenets of democracy, and the entire United States government needs to bear in mind that Ghana is a sovereign country. We are opposed to cultural imperialism. Just 2 weeks ago, the U.S. Department of State, when called upon to intervene in Israel, the Israeli campaign in Gaza Strip said that it was not the position of the U.S. Department of State to intervene in the local matters of sovereign states. Ghana is not the 51st state of the United States. Ghana is a sovereign state on its own. The sovereign parliament of Ghana has passed a bill. And I think that Matthew Miller should be more interested in the loss of life of Americans' children in American schools to gun violence.
Are they concerned, you know?
He knows where it matters and not where it doesn't matter. They're not invited in Ghana's local politics where our parliament has passed the law.
Flowing from, you know, this question my colleague has asked, are there concerns about how this might affect relations between Ghana and America? Also, are there concerns about pushbacks, not just pushbacks, but seeing exactly how, you know, Uganda was treated in some measure after they had passed their bill? Are there concerns that Ghana might face that same treatment?
Well, Ghana is a proud African nation, first country in the sub-Saharan Africa to gain independence and lead the light for the rest of Africa. I expect the leaders of our country, the president of our country, to stand shoulder high and tell the American people, you either do business with us on our terms or you can walk. American businesses that operate in Ghana are not in Ghana because of LGBTQ. They are in Ghana because they make a profit. If you're an American business working in Ghana, you turn $100 million in profit every year. If you think that because we are protecting our cultural values and saying no to LGBTQ, you want to lose $100 million in profit, pack up and go. Another company will come into Ghana and do business. Ghana is a fertile ground for business. Look, Africa must begin to assert our rights. We're not puppets and stooges of the West. Look at Uganda. Uganda's economy is not as big as Ghana's economy, but per the Economist Intelligence Unit, the EIU, the 2024 report, Uganda is going to have the 6th fastest growing economy in Africa in 2024. And it's just the sheer hypocrisy of America and the West. Doing business with Saudi Arabia and doing business with Qatar. Qatar spent $22 billion hosting the World Cup in 2022. 18 billion out of those 22 billion went to American and Western businesses. Qatar buys over $1 billion of military hardware every year from America. The punishment for homosexuality in Qatar is death. Nigeria passed a same-sex marriage bill as far back as 2015. In fact, your bill is more punitive than Ghana's bill. In Nigeria, the punishment in your law for same-sex marriage is 14 years imprisonment. The maximum in Ghana's law is just 3 years. Has Nigeria's economy collapsed? Has Uganda's economy collapsed? We need to begin to stand. The American economy would not run and the Western economies would not run without African raw material. I think it's time we begin to look at adding value to our own raw material. Why should Ghanaian cocoa and Nigerian cocoa be traded on the New York Stock Exchange and not on the Ghanaian Stock Exchange and Nigerian Stock Exchange? If we begin to assert ourselves, these guys will know that they have to deal with us on equal terms. They're not doing us a favor. We're doing them a favor. The best doctors in the United States medical system are Ghanaians and Nigerians. The best economists on Wall Street are Ghanaians and Nigerians. They're not better than us. We sit in the same classroom with them and beat them every day. Academically, intellectually, we're better than them. But it's simply because we've not asserted our rights as Africans, because we want to go for cheap hand-me-downs. And I keep repeating, the IMF and the World Bank are banks. Banks operate by giving loans and making profit of the interest of those loans. So they should not threaten us. I mean, a bank should not be threatening the customer and saying, I won't give you a loan if you don't do what I want. If I don't come to you for a loan, you don't turn a profit. And so our economies are what run those multinational banks. And until we begin to assert ourselves and begin to trade more amongst ourselves, Ghana should begin to buy more rice from Nigeria, and Nigeria should begin to buy more salt from Ghana. We don't need to be going to the West for this. That's our problem as Africa.
Okay, Honorable Sam George, talk to us about why it was important for you to champion this cause and for this bill to be passed. And I ask this because we hear a number of people who would say, and same thing was said here in Nigeria as well, that there are other challenges that our countries have faced. And why is it important that the rights of people who are, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and more, and why is it that these LGBTQ plus people are the priority as opposed to all the other issues bedeviling the nation?
Well, Parliament is considering a lot of several other bills that we are doing, and we'll deal with everything. But let's bear in mind, the people who lose their identity have lost their nation. The European and American communities and society have failed because they've redefined family. They've lost the sense of what it means to be family. And that's what they want. It's that kind of mental aberration and mental disorder that they want to import into our countries. You cannot continue to deal with cultural imperialism and say that it is a secondary matter. Our identity as Ghanaians is a principal matter for us. And that's why we've pushed this bill. Because look, the Ghana AIDS Commission in 2021 spent $200 million buying antiretroviral drugs to take care of HIV/AIDS for people who choose to have sex, men who choose to have sex with men. And so the government had to spend $200 million. Now, do you know how many school buildings in my constituency $200 million would have built? Or how many hospital beds that would have created? And so when somebody says that it is not a pressing issue, it's because they don't understand the full effect of homosexuality on society. We're dealing with getting enough beds for our women to give birth when they are pregnant. And we should now begin to divert those resources to stitch up the backsides of men who have chosen to go and have sex with men when they begin to have anal tears and anal warts. I mean, why should we be spending resources on that? We should be channeling the resources into areas that we need. Go and check the American system and see how many people are committing suicide because of the effect of homosexuality. The CDC says that homosexuals are 400% more likely to be suicidal. Do you know the effect of suicide on the GDP of a country? Do you know the fact that the young man who walked into a school in the United States 3 months ago and shot up 22 kids was transgender? And this all came from a mental disorder because of him having undergone a gender change or gender reassignment when he was 8 years old? I mean, is this what we want to bring into our society? I grew up in Nigeria, and I knew, and growing up in Nigeria, I could walk to my neighbor's house and have a meal with them. My parents weren't scared when I attended Command Day Secondary School in Oshodi at Nafrik Barracks. They knew I was going to go to school and come back. They weren't afraid that their son was going to get killed by a child who has been affected mentally because he's transgendered. And kids in my constituency in Ghana today go to school, play on the way back home, and the parents are safe. The parents are able to contribute to Ghana's economic development because they know their children are safe. We're not going to look, just look, even on the African continent. Which country has the highest crime rate? South Africa. Why? Because they've embraced homosexuality. It's one of the growing factors in that country. Look at every country that has embraced this and look at what has happened to their crime rate. This has ripple effects on society as a whole. We're not going to import the sickness and troubles of another country. We've got enough on our hands in Ghana and in Africa.
All right. Let's look at the role of media influencers, social media influencers. They've also been at the forefront, beating the drum for supporting the LGBTQ plus community. Does this law in any way touch on the freedom to canvass for the community, either on social media space, as we've seen that's quite proliferating, it's everywhere, we see it in acting, we see it in glamoring and so on, even in mansions and so on. Does this law touch on any aspect of that for influencers in Ghana?
Absolutely. We've gone after all technological and media platforms and said that you cannot use technological and media platforms to propagate stuff that is illegal in Ghana. So companies like DSTV, for example, will have to be careful about the kind of movies that they show in Ghana. And Ghana is not going to be the first country where they do that. We're not going to be the first country where we're going to say the kind of content you show on TV must be censored because this is not allowed. In every other country where they choose to protect their cultural values, there are things you cannot show. And for social media influencers, you cannot be a social media influencer and creating content that is contrary to the laws of the land. For example, Ghana has anti-money laundering laws. We have anti-terrorism laws and anti-vigilantism laws. You can't be a content producer right now and say that because you're a content producer or a social media influencer, you're producing content that promotes money laundering. The law would deal with you. So if we've passed the legislation that prohibits LGBTQ advocacy, and in fact, if you look at our bill, the punishment for advocacy is the strictest punishment in the bill. The punishment for advocacy is higher than the punishment for the act itself, because we want to protect the innocence of our children. And so everybody's going to be compelled to comply with the law. You either comply with it or you leave.
Are there fears that this might in some way increase some form of discrimination or extrajudicial treatment for people who are living or who are LGBTQ+? And I ask this because sometimes there isn't a surefire way to determine who a person is just by looking at them. And there have been people who are, for men who are effeminate or women who are more masculine. And some would argue that this might make them become targets or have targets at their back. So is this a concern that Ghanaians should be worried about?
Well, for the first time in Ghana, we have a legislation that protects the fundamental human rights to a fair trial of persons living with LGBTQ. I'm not going to run and play the ostrich and say I haven't seen instances where persons have been assaulted in an extrajudicial manner because of accusations or allegations of them being members of the LGBTQ community. But when you read this legislation, we actually impose, I think in section 18 or 19, we actually impose a punishment of up to 3 years on anybody who carries out extrajudicial treatment. So if you suspect somebody is guilty of falling foul of the law, the person must have their day in court, in a competent court of jurisdiction with a lawyer of their own choosing. You cannot on your own decide that you're going to beat the person or lynch the person. If you do that, you will go to jail. And that's what this law does. So this law is a very balanced law that seeks to protect the fundamental human rights of persons, all manner of persons, because strict proof must happen in a court of law. And let me state this fact for emphasis. We're governed by the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. That is what gives us law in Ghana, our 1992 Constitution. The 1992 Constitution gives everybody rights, but your rights are not absolute, including even the right to life. That's why the government of Ghana, through the courts, can curtail your life by sentencing you to death if your actions are inimical to public health, public safety, and public morality. These are the 3 grounds in our Constitution on which your fundamental rights can be curtailed, including your right to life. So if we're talking about public health, public morality and public security. I've told you what the effect of LGBTQ is on public health and public health delivery, as well as public morality. And so the framers of our constitution were very concerned about the morality of our country and the moral fiber of our country. If you read Article 39 of our constitution, it actually imposes a duty on the state to ensure that the proper moral fiber or proper social cultural norms are integrated into the moral fiber of the state. And so people have a fundamental right to a fair trial in a court. So if you're a member of if you choose to be a member of the LGBTQ community and carry out an illegal activity, one thing I can guarantee you is that you're entitled to a fair trial in a court of law. Your right to practice homosexuality is not a fundamental right. It's not a human right. There is no right in Ghana's constitution, and I'm yet to see any right in any international legislation that confers a right on people because of their sexual preference or gender identity. There is no international law as we speak today, including the UN Declaration on Human Rights, that gives a right on the basis of your sexual preference. But let me be clear on one last thing. As framers of this bill, we're not interested in what anybody does in the confines of their bedroom. I got woken up this morning by a call from your producer. I was in my bedroom, respectfully lying by my wife. Nobody's asked me what I did with my wife, and it's nobody's business what happens between me and my wife in my bedroom. But when you decide as an individual to bring what is supposed to remain in the privacy of your bedroom into public space and begin to advocate for your personal proclivity, then public policy will apply to you. And so nobody's going into anybody's bedroom. But when you decide to bring what ought to stay in your bedroom into the public space, then we'll have a public conversation about it.
All right. I'm sure I wish we had more time so we can talk more on this. Of course, the impact on children. We're also aware that you talked about how it affects children and so on. But hopefully, we'll get to bring you back and we'll find out once the president puts his pen to paper. And that will be a good time to have you join us again. And
Will that happen before the elections? Do you see that happening before the elections?
Yes, per our constitution, within 7 days since after we passed the bill, and we passed the bill 2 days ago, it has to be transmitted from Parliament to the office of the president. The president has 7 to 14 days to assent to the bill for it to become law. If he chooses not to assent to it, he has to write back to Parliament within 7 to 14 days, stating why he is refusing to assent to it. And then as sponsors of the bill, we have multiple options available to us. We can decide to use public pressure to compel the president to rescind his decision. Or my favorite position is to bring the bill back to Parliament for a public vote, an open public vote per the standing orders of Parliament. If I'm able to get 2/3 of the members of Parliament to vote in favor of my bill, the president can keep his green pen. It will become a law. Without the president's signature, it becomes law if I can get 2/3. I'm confident that we'll get 2/3 because when we had the vote in Parliament, there was not a single vote on the record against this bill. And I'm confident that 275 members in Ghana's Parliament, I will get more than 2/3 to support my bill. And I mean, the various authorities, the National House of Chiefs, have indicated their willingness to stand with us and compel the president to sign this bill. The Ghana Christian Council and Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Churches Council, the National Chief Imam's Office, and the Council of Traditional Worshippers have all stated their desire for the president to sign this bill. The president must remember that he holds power and trust for the Ghanaian. And when people say it's an election year, I wonder why that's a problem. The president is still bringing us loan agreements in an election year. We are signing them for him. So there should be no problem in an election year for him to sign something to protect our cultural values.
Honorable Sam George, there are many angles to this conversation that I would love to take, but hopefully we can have you again and you grant us another interview so we can delve further into the details of this bill.
Anytime.
Thank you very much.
And some say no wura Sam George ejitu eja minimum wadwen kire de nim after say bill ne pass wie no ene okọ other social media handles so a ene na owura Sam George o je no home na o postu article bi kura wo ho a na enya asem ketwa US 4 enso ede krata aba beto abontin na wotie de US 4 anasa America 4 no ka wo mo bill Ghana pass o say I am saddened because some of the smartest most creative, most decent people I know are LGBT. The bill Parliament passed takes away not only their basic human right, but also of all Ghanaians because it undermines their constitutional right to freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and freedom of the press. It will be bad for the public and public health. If enacted, it will also hurt Ghana's international reputation and Ghana's economy. And the way US embassy and I say US embassy Ghana and so editu dwa and almost supposed to abonting. And na post to net tweet in the cost yepo bia a fafun ano post to be so far no so tweet. Emma owura sam George so abe tweet in the and na tweet in the cost for more tweet. What Sam George say after 3 long years, we have finally passed the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Act 2024. I am grateful to my colleague sponsors who have waged this battle with me to a successful end. Our collective gratitude goes to our leadership and the Right Honorable Speaker of their guidance and leadership. Our values will be protected and defended so long as we have a voice for God and country. We some and so do also olibeto idwa and so no to Ghana for ali hie bi omo so enso kire o madwene efa asase mi hu ebi baako edin a efre no see me run eko America for US embassy for posters na okotwete o say LGBTQ plus right are human right and I feel unsafe in my country or my own country. Please do something before we die. I need to be in USA for my freedom. Into a more so can't side media who so start a bon krata a various platforms so chere say omunia daje na so musuru nti ekuro no mefo omum famfiri yes e ekuro mfanko ekuro no omo pesa ne o ma no so we a comment enko for e the airban no sans na sister Deborah ono so the bible until was the passage of this bill will fix roads, build hospitals and schools, ensure that there is potable water in every community, clean all the polluted rivers, stop galamsey, provide jobs for the Jews, solve their plastic pollution means, take the case off the street and also solve light of issue. Enti we Deborah enso de wade betu biara no kuboro nua no na ne wonde osre osese mo paase ade ediem yeso se enioma mo fam e wo Ghana ne nyina ebe fixe na de ebetimi aka ne se de aye die se na do dan kwa akofo ado ne sa sha asisi ekim na America for hwe de ade ekui na emwa se de nkofo start call mo page so church comment no nke be ya nkomo mfe flight baako omumpe flight baako na nkomo mfam bra Ghana nani omo a omo ye saade na omo nye save wo Ghana no me yesho se omo betima mo asylum seeking omo kurum ekuro bia wo all over the world there ebia sa asemi do makoma so hu ni se obi se opeso fa no to na eba bonten sa no maneoma no omo chekere na ye no hu ni se ebe ha adwene no nye bad omo betimi so omo sa right no omo kuro no so se bia France for no do mo flight aba America for no flight aba say Germany for no flight aba ekuro bi omo pese omo boa saadi ni omo tim no flight e de abese kotoka intene odu eye kotoka before abe departure na check out so oye bia mpa na de wasi plim na nke de kom yeso se nke ye bad sa anyway Ghana for me be na kire se omo ye saadi ni kire se omo nye save e wo Ghana minimum wadwen kire obetimi don so wadwen kire ba medin e de Ekuonaba boatin medase
hello ebusiafo so wo pesifita structure odofo de and then afa ho kodom unique laser whitening e wo toothpaste sonko a se wo de twitwi wo se a ema wo se na eye fita na eye fita no so no na eyi enka bone bia wo no mu bia any tea stains, coffee stains, smoking stains bia wo no mu bia unique laser whitening product ebe yi ni nyina free so ama kama de o hia ne se ubetu so na wo de egu o brush no so uwia na wo de twitwi wo se ne so nyina kama uwia enwuru enum gen wenum sa into contact unique laser whitening at 079 99792330 079 99792330 unique laser whitening or say muni ses
Penifo se bibiro wi asenti ne da ne atopno na ne pabone fonti e wo se wo bambo hu hia na ne papa mu de pro technologies ana me kan fama wo ane pro Technologies. We are specialized in both sales and installation of CCTV cameras. Yeton esa install CCTV cameras in the Sour Ghana and NASA brochure now fear Ghana. Now pursue CCTV camera installation. We need Pro Technologies and in South. We get CCTV camera installation, electric fence, automated gate, access control, video doorbell, and our intercom, and our satellite TV, home theater, so upebiato, and our water, and our pesebe install them out. Pro Technologies, and our software. Na shenenso. Say a video you name for America brochure. In this side, Papa now pedia. Man, you know, none wants to that form. Make sure you know the web brochure any branch, our Ghana. You need more brow brain into Sika Fire and Sem. Symphony Yapadema or Ghana. What da. Nanya Tennessee, yes, general construction. So web brochure, no peso si for Ghana. A time plan be a peso. So I shall see that. And now for no peso. Plain beer, Yebesiama, and which so here solar power, and our bamba once and send the idea. When you need Sawaso, near Sansuya smart home, a pair from Fidia Bia Pestashe, a wolf here, and our Chubamo de Mawo, when you need Sawaso. We are just a call away, near Sansu Ada de Mahai, and now February Trabedu Ghana, now open full house, room, and our apartments are high, for short term and our long term. Yebemo Biani border form, now Bamba once and dear, man, you know, and your interior decoration. So as if you're and I assume fear amount. Yes, sign decoration. Your best yes, you'll be an our officer at the amount. And where the sort of video be now who can first install it. And none settings, ye bay at the amount. Our Ghana, Ubehuyan, when Mirror Fradenta, Edward Yacha Dodoa, Ubehuya, our Ashi, Yene Emalin Pharmacy, and what the same building. For information or WhatsApp 401-7570-300 and a plus 401-6992-254. Pro Technologies. We have the solutions for your security and home entertainment needs at affordable prices.